patience today to our witness. But we will get started now. So just for everyone's quick refresher, we're going to hear a little bit of testimony on the right to repair bill. Right?
Yes,
Sure.
That's correct. That's correct.
Because I know you're also coming in
later this week.
Later this
Yes.
week. Okay.
Yes.
And then we're going to spend a little time back on 126, and then more time on 126, I guess. Then back to 81 again. So, okay, I guess I've got it sort of straight in my own head. Why don't we turn it over to you?
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to see everybody. For the record, my name is Maddie Kempner, and I'm the policy director at NOFA Vermont. I am here today to testify in support of H81, the right to repair bill. And I will say we have not, I'll be transparent that we haven't heard a lot from farmers about this issue. And so I've been sitting with this bill and kind of wondering how it was landing in our community. And when I started to reach out to producers directly over the past week or so that you all have been taking it up, it has become more clear to me that this is an issue for farmers in our community. And I think that one of the reasons I suspect maybe this hasn't risen to the level of, that would cause a lot of farmers to contact us is I do think a lot of farmers in our community are using older equipment currently that they can still repair themselves, and so may not be as directly impacted by the issues, that are trying to be addressed by this bill, especially with regard to computerized diagnostics and software. I also suspect, frankly, that one of the reasons farmers may not be reaching out to us about this is that it hasn't occurred to them that this is an issue that we can impact through legislation. Farmers and foresters may take it for granted that this is just the way that it has to be. So those are, and I don't say that to diminish their understanding of these issues in any way, but sometimes I think we take for granted, the imbalances in our culture that cause these kinds of issues. So in our outreach, like I said, over the past week, we have heard from several farmers we've contacted. This actually is a huge issue for them. Some farmers are dealing with it right now, as you've heard in testimony, I think already in the last week. And for those using older equipment, they will be impacted by it very likely in the future without this bill, as they transition to buying modern equipment that is more based in these computerized diagnostics. So really in the long run, we believe the ability for farmers and foresters to have easy, affordable access to repair is not only really central and very aligned with Vermont's culture of self-sufficiency and practicality, but we also think it will be a good thing for equipment manufacturers in addition to being good for farmers and foresters. And I can explain why I think that. If people know a product is reliable and affordable to work on in the long term, our sense is they're more likely to purchase that product new or used. I think, oftentimes we see two models in the farming community, to oversimplify. One being, some especially larger farms may purchase new equipment that they know will be covered under manufacturer's warranty for a specific period of time, and therefore those repairs will be affordable to them, relatively speaking. They then rely on the ability to sell that equipment to a farmer who is more interested in purchasing it used, with the assumption that that farmer can then afford to work on it themselves. So a model that relies exclusively on the dealer for parts and service and diagnostics and everything that's included in this bill really disadvantages both of those producers. Because, as you heard, sometimes relying on the dealer can cause a farm to incur costs because of long wait times, and it makes that product less attractive to the farmer who's interested in buying it secondhand. I also wanted to address briefly the MOU that you've heard about that the Farm Bureau has entered into with John Deere. And a couple of things on that front that we acknowledge. That MOU, the fact that it exists, is an acknowledgement that this is an issue for farmers throughout the nation. It doesn't, however, include sufficient accountability mechanisms. It doesn't include parts, and it doesn't include forestry equipment. So we just really don't see that as a complete solution to this issue. I will also say, and I know that the bill sponsor mentioned this issue when she introduced it, but John Deere is only one manufacturer. And that's only one type of equipment that's used by farmers and foresters in the state. I'll say personally, I live in Cambridge. My kids go to daycare in East Fairfield, and we drive by about 6 dairy and or beef operations on our 12-minute drive to daycare. My 3-year-old son learned the color orange by driving by so many farms with Kubota tractors, and very quickly thereafter learned the word Kubota. So that's just to say we have lots of other types of equipment that's used here in the state. We did hear from one farmer who specifically let us know that his newest tractor is 40 years old. And he has several that are older than that because he doesn't want to deal with the computers. I think there are probably a lot of farms in the state that are in a similar situation. And in the future, I will say that farmer may need to upgrade to newer equipment. It's likely they will. That relies on computers. We understand that. And perhaps that farmer will opt to go through the dealer rather than learn how to use, the diagnostic tools, use and or purchase what can be really expensive diagnostic tools. So I think, especially if the dealer can offer a competitive rate. So this bill doesn't negate the choice to work with the dealer going forward for repair, but we do believe it should be a choice that the farmer or forester has. And I think that's the primary information that I want to share with you all, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'm also, the last thing I wanted to say is I really encourage the committee to hear from more farmers and foresters on this issue specifically. And we have one farmer on our board who has offered to testify, and I've given that information to Alora, and we're happy to help connect you with more farmers in the community who would be directly impacted by this.
Thank you. Questions from the committee?
Maddie, thank you for being here. This is just a technical comment. Foresters are not forests, they're not timber harvesters, and they're not timber producers. They don't use heavy forestry equipment. Loggers, and I don't know or timber harvesters are required to have very complex and harvesting equipment, and most mill yards also have loaders and other equipment. But foresters are graduates who are skilled in implementing silvicultural treatments. They have a spray can of paint usually, and perhaps a Biltmore stick.
Yeah.
Not
understood. I appreciate the distinction.
Accuracy matters.
Absolutely. Yes.
I've been in this profession for 56 years, but I've never called myself a forester. Though I have a great understanding of forest ecology, forestry principles, et cetera, et cetera. It's just important. They might have a car or a pickup truck.
Yes.
Or a hand telephone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Distinction noted. I appreciate that. It's, as you know, not my primary purview. So, no, I appreciate it very much. Thanks.
Other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Clear as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love that he loved orange, like Kubota.
All right, we will end this